have quite a few books that are brand new that, ow, I just scratched myself, that I am very excited to show off. So why not get right into it? Why explain years of an absence on this channel? There's no need. Let's just get right in. The only thing I will say is that in my time off of this channel, I realized that my reading tastes have really changed. And I think that's something that can just be seen through books. I don't need to explain it. You get it. You get it. So let's start with one of the books I'm reading right now, because the other book I'm reading right now is at the bottom of the new book pile for some reason. The first book is The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I am about that far into this bad boy, and I am so in love with this, and I knew I would be. Initially, what drew me to this book was V.E. Schwab said it was one of her favorite books of the year. She posted a little picture of all the books she read, or like even just her favorites, and then she circled her most favorites. And then I went through all the circles and I looked up which books sounded most interesting to me, because I am obsessed with V. Schwab, I guess. No, I just feel like we have a lot of similar personality traits, and that definitely does translate into our reading tastes as well. I say our and we, it's just me observing what she posts online, and then I'm like, us. We. So this is, I take it, an urban fantasy, but something that I'm really liking about it is that there's world building, but then at the same time, it's so open-ended, world-wise, universe-wise, and I'm really liking that. I don't know, it's just something I haven't read before, and it leaves so much in the eye of the beholder that I don't even realize. Like, I'm filling in all these gaps in the world, my own imagination, which is really fun. This follows Linus, who is, I believe, middle-aged, and he's working at a desk job. And first of all, the similarities, the parallels drawn between our world and this magical version of our world, it's brilliant. It's done so well. I'm not even describing what it's about. I can't stop talking about it. It follows Linus, and he's a caseworker for magical youth, as they are called. The way I thought about this, it reminds me of My Hero, but the part of it we never saw, like right after kids started being born with abilities, and you know, they just brushed over that in the intro, like, oh yeah, these kids were born with abilities, and decades later this is what's happening. But I feel like this is much more what it was like in the beginning, when people were just starting to get magical abilities and everyone was like, what do we do? I don't get the vibe that they just started appearing out of nowhere, more so it's been a much longer road towards coexistence. So Linus has to take on a new case. It's unlike any he's ever had to work on before. He has to go to this little island for a month to report on and investigate these especially magical kids and their caretaker. It's absolutely what V. Schwab says here. It's like being wrapped up in a big gay blanket. Simply perfect. It really is. Also, just the relationships with the children. I have teared up reading this more times than I'd like to admit, just because something happens that is so heartwarming. I can't, my body doesn't know what to do. It just starts tearing up. 10 out of 10 recommend so far. Up next, we'll go for a twofer. 2 books by the same author. It's really exciting when you start really liking a new author, or new to you. I don't know, it's something very exciting about it. Last year, I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and I loved it. I had a very interesting relationship with that book. I was so similar to the main character, or what she was writing really resonated, whatever it was. I would have to block out the rest of the day when I would read it. Be like, okay, I'm gonna read this, and the rest of the day is gonna be horrible. That book was very triggering. But the weird thing is that makes me like it more, because that makes me think that she wrote that very spot on for me to have visible, real world reactions. Like, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed the rest of the day. I could do a whole video on my experience reading that book. Anyway, so I have 2 more of her books. First is Homesick for Another World by Otessa Moshfegh, and the second one is just McGlue. It's called McGlue. This one, I would not be surprised if you had already heard of it. It's definitely making its rounds. It's very popular. I'm really pumped to read it. It's a bunch of short stories, and apparently they are all very interesting. Those are the words. Grotesque and the outrageous are infused with tenderness and compassion. I don't think anything can describe her writing better. She's so talented. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to be in the right headspace to read this, because I didn't know that going into my year of rest and relaxation, or at least I didn't know it would have that impact on me. And I've heard that this one is really intense. So I'm definitely going to wait until I know I'm ready to read this. Probably the summer then. Probably the summer. This guy, I don't know. I've not heard anything about this guy. I got this before I even read my year of rest and relaxation. I had that book, but then I got this one from my uncle because he was cleaning out his apartment. I actually got a bunch of books from him. This one is obviously very short. I think it only takes place over the course of a night, and it follows McGlue, okay? Follows McGlue in a holding cell while he is, like, I feel like still coming to consciousness, or he's still very drunk. Oh, he's too drunk from the night before, okay. To remember what he did the night before. And he may or may not have killed his best friend. And that takes place over the course of 100 pages, and I'm really excited to read this. I feel like this is gonna happen pretty soon, but I think you'll find I'm gonna say that about just about everything. I'm very excited about the books I have. Which brings me to my next one. Are Prisons Obsolete by Angela Y. Davis. I have been wanting to read this one for so long. And I'm finally letting myself buy books again. That's a whole other topic. So my first batch, I picked up this guy. It's a topic I've always felt very strongly about before I even had the research to know what I was talking about. I always knew that this was something I was passionate about. Now that I'm learning much more and actually digging into the subject and the topic, I am really excited to hear what Angela Davis has to say about it. And I think this will be my next nonfiction read. I tend to read at least 2 things at a time, at least. One is always fiction, one is always nonfiction, and I might throw in another fiction in there most of the time. Now my nonfiction is The People's History of the United States. This is just because my brain doesn't work that well with nonfiction. One at a time is exactly the right amount for me. So I feel like Are Prisons Obsolete is definitely going to be the next one. Let's go for some YA. Why not? Let's throw in some YA. I got Wilder Girls by Rory Power. I've heard a lot about this one. This book follows, I believe it's an academy, a girls' academy on an island or something, and they all get very, very sick. They're quarantined on this island, and then one of the characters goes missing. So I'm guessing the main character, Hetty, will do anything to find her, even breaking quarantine. I'm still out of breath from getting up 5 minutes ago. It just sounds very interesting. I like that it is, I mean, hopefully an entirely girl cast. That sounds pretty sick to me. I've looked at this one a few times, thought about picking it up, but I feel like there'll be a perfect time to in between dense reads. If I need something easier, something light, but something interesting and fun. Is this guy. So next, I cannot tell you, I love this book so much. I read this maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and I love it so much. Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. So good. First, this was published in 2014, but it's about a pandemic, which is immediately what caught my attention. I don't want anything published in 2020 about a pandemic. I don't, because I don't know why. I said it with so much passion. There's something about media created in 2020 to, it seems like, capitalize off of the pandemic. Doesn't sit right with me. That thing on Netflix called 2020. Who wants to watch this? We're living it. But something about someone's perspective on a pandemic from 2014 who has literally no idea what's gonna happen. And the craziest part of it is that there were so many similarities I found between what happened last year and what happened in this book. It was almost scary. First though, a lot of similarities between what we experienced towards the beginning of the pandemic, even now-ish, versus what the characters and the world, the fictional world, experienced. Like, I could not believe how on the nose she was. Mentioned to some people I was reading this and they're like, isn't that kind of scary? The only part of it that was scary was the fact that this takes place, I believe it's 20 years after the pandemic first hits. And at first I was like, okay, whatever, and then I realized, oh, we're still in the first year. That's when it hit me. It was a little scary, but things escalate much more quickly in this. It is at the same time a much different set of events. It's still a flu pandemic, but the circumstances are definitely different. It's much more Walking Dead in the beginning. Not zombies, but like apocalyptic wise. I personally went into it not knowing the plot. That's a decision I make a lot to read. I really prefer to go into books knowing as little as possible. That's something I've always been like that. I will say is that it follows a traveling acting group, musician group, like, you know, traveling caravan of actors and musicians, which is really cool. It goes back and forth, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, which is so interesting to see. Everything about this I loved, and I feel like I got a lot out of it because I'm living in a pandemic and I know exactly what she's talking about. I get it. I do recommend it. However, I would also make sure that it's something you're comfortable reading, you know, also living in a pandemic. Up next, I have Consider the Lobster by David Foster Wallace. This is something I have seen for years and years, and everyone talked about it, and it never caught my eye, really. I was like, okay, a book of essays. Next. This sounds great to me now. A book of essays. That sounds so exciting. David Foster Wallace is obviously very renowned, and apparently this is just him covering, I believe it's 3 essays. Is that correct? That's not correct. It's him looking into topics in essays that are apparently very narrative driven, that can also be quite funny, and I know this book has had an impact on a lot of people, and I'm ready to be one of those people. I want this to have an impact on me. I want every piece of media I consume to have an impact on me, and that's my problem. You notice my lipstick was dry and he didn't even tell me. It's messed up. Alright, let's throw in another YA while we're at it. And that is Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adib Khorram. I am very pumped to read this. I believe I say that after every single book, if I'm not mistaken. So this follows Darius, who is half Persian. This book takes place over the course of his first visit to Iran. If you can hear my elderly dog breathing, aka wheezing, I'm sorry, but she's breathing. And I will not stop her from doing that. Darius really does not believe he's gonna fit in, or he's not fitting in, until he meets a neighbor, Sarab, who helps everything to change. I believe it is a coming-of-age novel following these 2 boys, and I'm hoping, like V.E. Schwab says about the other book, it's like being wrapped up in a big gay blanket, which is the best kind to be wrapped up in, you know what I mean? Oh, wait, I'm reading the back now, and it says, for anyone who's ever felt not good enough and then met a friend who makes them feel so much better, and then BuzzFeed also said something about friendship. So this might actually be a book about friendship, which is also very nice and very sweet. I might just be wrong about the gay thing, but if I'm not wrong about that, I also will not be upset. I also can tell that this is one I'm probably going to read very soon. It sounds really interesting. The representation sounds really amazing to read. Up next, we have Another Brooklyn by Jacqueline Woodson. So this follows August, who runs into an old friend, which then spurs on this onslaught of memories from, I believe it's the 70s in New York? 1970s Brooklyn. So it talks about, you know, the great parts of growing up in Brooklyn, but then it talks about another Brooklyn that is much more dangerous, much more lucrative, you know, a dangerous place where grown men reached for innocent girls in dark hallways, where mothers disappeared, where fathers found religion, and where madness was a mere sunset away. I have been wanting to pick this up for a while. First of all, the cover is gorgeous. I'm obsessed with this. I think this is going to be one I'm reading soon. I can't keep saying that. I'm just so excited about all of these. This is one I feel like I've seen a lot but have not heard a lot about. And I don't know why. I'm ready to form my own opinion then. I'm sure I'm gonna like it though. Up next, we have A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. I said I was done with war books. I said I was done with war books. Then you give me a book about a woman saving the day, and nope, so here I am. So this is the story of Virginia Hall, who was a spy during World War II and went behind enemy lines and, despite her prosthetic leg, helped to light the flame of the French resistance, revolutionizing secret warfare as we know it. Secret warfare. Alright. Not up my alley. But a woman being a spy, crossing enemy lines, and doing cool shit? That sounds so great. That part I'm all about. And it's history. Like, she was real. That's so sick. Oh my gosh, this book is as riveting as any thriller. You know what? I absolutely believe it. So up next is a book that I do not know the summary. I know the little catch. I know the little phrase thing. That's all I want to know. And that's Cursed by Frank Miller. Oh, I do this every time. Written by Thomas Wheeler and illustrated by Frank Miller. Because yes, there's illustrations. This is one of the heaviest books I think I've ever held, first of all. And the illustrations? All I know about this is that it says, whoever wields the sword of power shall be the one true king. But what if the sword has chosen a queen? I'm about it. That's all I need. That's literally all I needed to hear to buy this. I really hope it's good because I'm beyond excited about this. Just the whole ambiance of the cover, the inside cover. Come on, give me a good... Alright, the naked book, also pretty cool. I just have high hopes for this one. Maybe it's also the illustrations. The amount of money put into this product, I think, it's given me high expectations. Born in the dawn to pass in the twilight. Ah, I want to read it. I don't want to know anything about it. I don't even want to know the main character's name. Don't tell me, but please tell me if you read it and you liked it. That part I want to know. It also says it's going to be a Netflix show. I've not heard one thing about this. Am I just living under a rock? Has everyone heard about this except for me? This is Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kawhi Strong Washburn, and I did not get it at Barnes & Noble in the $3 off bin shelf. I got this used and it came with a sticker. So, I've been seeing this one around, and first of all, this is one of the most beautiful covers I think I've ever seen. Like, I am absolutely in love with this. When I said that to my boyfriend, he said it's just because it's yellow and orange, which are my favorite colors. That might be it. It's up in my, like, top 5. God, it's gorgeous. So, this begins with a shark saving a 7-year-old boy's life in 1995? 1995. They hail his rescue as a sign of the favor of ancient Hawaiian gods, a belief reinforced by Noah's puzzling new abilities. But then this book also follows Noah and his siblings as they separate and start living their own lives all throughout the west coast of the US, but then a tragic incident drives them all back to Hawaii. I really like those types of books. I just read The House of Broken Angels, which also is like that, you know, it's a family that's coming together for something tragic, but they're all reliving memories and bonding and mending, and there's something about those types of books that really resonate with me. I really like those. So I think I'll like that about this one too, because it sounds like it's him and his siblings going back home, rekindling and mending, and now that I'm thinking about it, like, I really do read a lot of books with that kind of theme. I have this one high up on my TBR. I'm very excited to read this. My foot's falling asleep. We gotta make this fast. Up next, I have 2 books, which I kind of surprised myself when I bought. If they weren't so cheap, I might not have. But now that they're here, I'm excited. And that is Now I Rise and Bright We Burn by Kiersten White. I read And I Darken when it first came out, whatever year that was. I truly don't remember. They all blend together for me. I read that and I loved it. And then after that, I fell into that reading slump, realized that I had just kind of grown out of YA, and it took a really long time to realize that. Whatever. So, first of all, I didn't even realize the series ended. I believe it's a trilogy based on her Twitter. I didn't realize that both of these had come out, and I was like, oh my god. I remember when I finished And I Darken, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and all I wanted was the next book, and now I've got 2 of them, and I think I'm gonna, because I do not remember And I Darken, I don't. I think I'm gonna reread that, and then read these 2, and kind of have a fun little trilogy. How would you say it? I don't like saying binging things. And I keep doing this hand motion. I don't know. My own little readathon. I'm gonna read the 3. Bridgets, And I Darken readathon. Alright? That's what's gonna happen. Coming this summer. I need summertime. If you haven't heard about this series, first of all, so good, based on the first book. Haven't read the other two. I loved Anti-Darken. I loved it. It's a YA fantasy. It's almost like a historical fiction slash fantasy. Like, it's really crazy. It's really cool. It's like based off Vlad the Impaler and who was the Conqueror? Based off the Ottoman Empire, so very crazy. I'm pumped to read it again, to be honest. Like, I'm looking at her right now, first of all. She's gorgeous. I just remember how much I liked that book. I really dug it, so I'm ready to jump into these two. Up next, very famous book, The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. So pumped about this one. I believe this was on Obama's list this year, wasn't it? It's either this or Untamed. I kind of got those two mixed up in my head because it's the swirling colors in the background. I do want that book too, Untamed. Sounds really good. But The Vanishing Half follows two sisters who grew up in a small black southern community, and they both move away, but then one moves back, and then the other sister is living on the other side of the country. I believe living a lie. I read this the summary a while ago. Across the country, the other secretly passes for white, and her white husband still knows nothing of her past. This takes place from the 1950s to the 1990s. I'm really excited to read this and get yet another new perspective. I feel like that I'm really gonna like this one. I've only heard good things about it. Up next, we have the other book I'm reading right now, which for some reason was on the bottom of the pile. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. You knew it had to be in here somewhere. Loving it. What more can I say? Everyone's heard about this book by now. Actually, I'm gonna be totally honest. I have been on page 241 for probably a week. I don't know why. I'm dead set in the middle, which I feel like is why. I guess I just hit like a little lull that I could have totally made up myself. Does not help that then I started reading The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is so good that I'm like, alright, I'll just read that. No, after I finish that book, I'm not picking up another one until I finish this bad boy. This is so good so far though, writing-wise, story-wise. It really tripped me up. Like, it took me a while to like adjust my thinking to what Addie has to go through, like not leaving any sort of mark or on anything. Because if you did not know, if you have not heard about this book yet, it follows Addie LaRue, who was cursed to be immortal and also to not be remembered by anyone, to not be able to leave a mark on anything or anyone. Basically, a common greatest fear, but blown up. And I think about that all the time. Okay, second to last. This is a book I picked up for $3. When I show you this book, you're not gonna believe it was $3. At the ShopRite $3 book counter that for some reason existed. I cannot believe this book was $3. And that's Patsy by Nicole Dennis Benn. Look at this beautiful, big, hardcover book. What does it look like naked? Alright, that's cool. I just can't get over that. This is a beautiful and big hardcover. So this follows a woman who lives in a small Jamaican town and is getting letters from her best friend who lives in New York saying how great America is, how great New York is. So this woman, Patsy, obviously, immigrates to New York. She realizes it is absolutely not all it's chalked up to be. So this talks about the hardships of immigration, what Patsy has to go through once she gets to New York. This is one I can definitely see myself reading very soon, but the problem is I can see myself reading all of these very soon, but I'm also very pumped about this one. I'm very excited for it. I also have not seen or heard this anywhere, and again, I don't know if I'm just totally out of the loop. And lastly is one I'm sure we've all heard of, and I'm very excited to finally read. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Very pumped. I actually read the first few pages of this and had to force myself to put it down because I'm already reading 3 books. And the first few pages were really good. So this follows Theo, who miraculously survives an accident that killed his mother. And that kind of follows him throughout his life, I mean, as it would. He moves in with a very wealthy family, and then he finds a career in art selling? The underworld of art. He is alienated, unmoored, and in love. I'm excited. I'm really excited. This is so famous and I've never read it. So those are all my new books. we're gonna see if I can hold some up. My foot is extremely asleep. So these are all my books. Not all, this is about half my books. I hope you enjoyed watching. I enjoyed talking. And I'll see you next time. I'm always down to talk about books again, now that I'm reading again. So I'm sure you'll be hearing more from me. Bye!